revolutionary ideas and involve you in revolutionary projects. So we have been working on this idea for an urban gardening cooperative. And Isaiah is in Los Angeles, California, and I am in Norman, Oklahoma. He's starting a nonprofit, and we're talking about creating a cooperative business model that could be copied, it could be replicated in Los Angeles, as well as I could do it here in Norman. You could do it wherever you are. So the idea, we have it kind of written out underneath Isaiah there. You can see his bio and a description of his nonprofit project. We'll be getting into the details of what that cooperative would look like today. But yeah, before we dive into all that yummy details, let's meet Isaiah. Let's get a little check-in. How are you doing, Isaiah?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I just got home from work, but raring to go. And so, yeah, setting a little bit more context, we're live streaming. You could be seeing this on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. I'm not sure where you are. Hopefully it's all working. I'm still figuring out how to get the technology to do everything it's supposed to. Like, I'm looking at my YouTube page right now, and I don't see anything streaming. Like, I don't know how it works on YouTube, honestly. I am completely lost. Completely lost. There is nothing on my channel. So I don't know how it works. But I've definitely seen it show up on Facebook. Oh, well. If you're there, hi. There's chat. There's a chat box in Twitch and in YouTube, and there's the comment section underneath us in Facebook. And if you write in there, I should be able to see it here in this chat room that I have open right in front of me. So we can have a conversation. If you have any questions or suggestions or feedback for us, please let us know. And we'll try to fold you into the conversation. But just I don't know who's out there. So if you are there, say hi, just say whatever. Jump into the conversation whenever you feel like it, or don't. We're going to start the conversation where we left off. First, I'll give a little bit of background of where we are. So far we've talked about the business model, and we kind of started talking about the nonprofit, and we might even need to go back and talk about some of the stuff again, because the nonprofit is pretty simple. It's like education on regenerative gardening and other regenerative topics, and Isaiah is also into nutrition, so it might have nutrition education involved as well. But mainly it's an educational organization. But one of the things it could educate on is how to grow food and how to grow food for profit. And so people who got this education could then be involved in a for-profit cooperative that would be growing food in urban areas. And so far we've been talking about starting that out with Isaiah growing mushrooms and microgreens in his house. And he also has some spaces outdoors, and he just sent me, I can actually flash it to you real quick. He just sent me some photos of his neighborhood here and some areas that he has available outdoors to do some gardening as well. And actually, I'm curious because he just sent me these. Isaiah, you want to tell us a little bit about this aerial view photo and what we're looking at?
Yeah, so basically we're looking at, on one side, there's a series of backyards, and then on the other side, there are a similar series of backyards with an alley in between. I don't know if you can probably see the alley.
Yeah.
Since that photo, I think it's been, they've done a lot of improvements. Like the city dumped a lot of wood chips and cleaned it up a lot, so it's not just like a dirt alley. So it's actually very smooth now, and trucks can get through, and cars, and and there's actually like fungal activity happening like under some of the wood chips, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the alley sort of provides this accessibility to all of those yards, and some of the yards are, I would say most of them are maybe 0.15 to 0.25 of an acre in size, maybe just under a quarter acre. the biggest ones, and some are concrete and some are like grass, but
Mhm.
none of them have really been cultivated or yeah, fertilized or anything like that over the years. So I
Yeah,
see an opportunity, yeah, to green those.
it's space.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
there's a big open area there in the middle. So is one of these houses the one you live in? What's going on here?
Yeah, so the one, the mine is a concrete base one with like a court area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then so I have a neighbor with more of a concrete area, and then but that one, I was noticing it doesn't it's a lot of shade. It's a very shaded area,
Hmm.
and then the one to my right, that one's all dirt and vegetation. So and it's actually pretty fertile area.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so yeah, you're trying to organize kind of the people in your neighborhood to allow you to grow some food, and you've already gotten permission to use some space. Um, but yeah, what we were discussing is that, to get some production going that would allow him to actually develop a market, that he might want to do something more intensive like mushrooms or microgreens that has year-round production really consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you grow vegetables, like, you might get a truckload, for a few weeks, but then you have nothing for months. So that's not kind of a very good place to start if you're trying to build a market. Um, and which that's exactly why I started a mushroom farm back in
Mm-hmm.
the early 2000s, or late, so it was 2008, 9, 10, around then.
Mm-hmm.
I had my mushroom farm, and yeah, it was pretty much the exact same idea to start growing mushrooms and then use that as a jumping off point to do a lot of other crops. So yeah,
Yeah, I do
that's.
enjoy that. I love mushrooms a lot, and learning about them. I was thinking maybe starting in maybe a 5 by 5 sort of tent that could be kept the humidity range and the temperature range exactly that it needs. It might be something pretty neat to start off with, but I just don't, in 25 square feet, I don't know exactly how much, something like that, if it's worth the, if the yield will take care of the sort of all the effort and stuff. 'Cause it seems like a small space.
Yeah, so yeah, just gonna test things out. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're really just playing here, and I do feel like we're kind of going out into really creative territory with this idea of how we might structure a cooperative. I've been putting a fair bit of input into it because, I would love to do this as well, and it would be cool if we could create a model that could be replicated and we could both do
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But at the same time, I want you to let me know if anything's like not exactly the way that you would do it, or whatnot. Like, let's come up with something that works, and you and the audience let us know as well, because I know I can go off on like a tangent. I can go down a real rabbit hole.
Yeah, because the idea is just race, with when you're inspired. I think so.
Yeah,
That's perfectly awesome.
yeah, and I've got some crazy ideas I've been thinking about for a while. So all right, let's see. I'm opening up our circles of engagement. Let me see if it's centered where the audience can see it. I think I need to lift it up just a little bit, and then they can see the whole thing. Okay, so what you see on your screen is a diagram that we started to fill out last time. And Isaiah, do you have it open?
Let me see in the drive. What was the name of the one diagram again?
Circles of engagement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So be good if we could both be looking at it. And I had to place it really high on the screen so everybody can
Okay.
see it, but it is there.
Yeah, I don't see it as you edit it, but I do. I can open it.
Okay. Great. Okay. So yeah, this is a bullseye diagram that kind of shows. Wait, Isaiah, I can't see you. Are you trying to open it on the same doc?
Oh,
Do you have?
yeah.
You need to have
Okay.
2 things. Have like a phone and a computer or something.
Yeah, I forgot about it. I can do that on my phone.
Okay. Okie dokie. Yeah, you can see it on your phone. So this is how the different like levels of involvement in the organization work. So if people just look from the top, on the outside ring, you've got like the customers, and then you've got workers, and you've got producers, and you've got the board of directors in the middle. And the way that we've been talking about doing this is a multi-staker cooperative. We're getting fancy here. So that would mean that there are 3 different classes of members, that the consumers would be members. And the reason for that is we want to get everybody involved in farming. We don't just want some people farming, we want everybody farming. So we want those customers to come out and do work trade and help us out in the gardens. So we want them to be members. And then we've got worker members. Those are people who have actually been hired, possibly more than just work trade. Maybe they've been through an internship period. They've taken some beginning level training. They know what they're doing. They're hired part-time or full-time, and they're growing food and they're making wages. So they're another class of members. And then producers are people who, maybe they did that for a while and they really know what they're doing. And so they wanted to go off and start their own operation in their own backyard or their own house. And they just want to kind of do their own thing and then bring what they grow back to the cooperative and sell it through the cooperative. So we would be creating a marketplace where people could bring their produce or eggs or milk or whatever and sell it to the members. This model also makes it possible to do a lot more with farming than you can with a typical company, because with this model you can sell people like eggs that haven't been washed, raw milk, chickens that are processed in someone's backyard. If you already own the food before it's processed, it's like your own food. It's like you made it in your own yard. So people can get together. There's some farmers who have people just buy a share of a cow, and then you can get the milk or the meat once they slaughter it, because you already own it. So you can do that kind of thing. Having the customers be members allows us to kind of get around some of the rules around like what you could normally sell in a grocery store or something like that. So and then beyond that, then if somebody was involved for a while and kind of knew what they were doing business wise, then they could be on the board of directors and make decisions for the whole organization at that kind of ownership level. Things like setting the budget and whatnot. So that's what we were talking about last time, and we came up with these like levels of training that they could go through. And this is where I'm really jumping in and saying that I would be excited to help organize this, because I have had this idea to create these trainings for an organization, and like teaching people how to be part of a regenerative business. I would love to come up with that. And last time when I made a clip of it, we were talking about repurposing regenerative content that's already on the internet. People have put out videos for free, and that we could use that as training material for our members, saying, hey, watch this video, then take a quiz or read a book or an article, and then take a quiz to prove that you did it, and we'll give you credit for it. So that plus some content that we created ourselves would kind of step people through getting training to be more and more involved in this organization. Mm-hmm. So I think we're both really psyched about that idea, because it's going to take some education. Like, people don't know how to do regenerative gardening, which is very different than conventional gardening, because we're not mining the soil, we're building the soil, we're adding carbon to the soil, we're not tilling the soil, we're not using chemicals, we're being collaborating with the insects and the weeds, and they're all part of the ecosystem. We have ways of working with them instead of working against them. At least I have been. I think Isaiah's been doing the same thing, haven't you?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you should see my kale. Like, everybody's like, oh, that kale's getting eaten by bugs. You should pull it out. You should kill those bugs. No, I left it, and now it's like, it's looking awesome because I fed it. I fed the ground. I fed the soil, and it outcompeted the bugs, and it's coming back stronger than ever. So that's what we're doing. So yeah, we're at this point now where we need to finish filling this out. And the way that we finish filling it out is by going on the sides of the diagram. One is listing the things that each one of these classes is contributing to the organization, and the other one is listing the things that they're receiving from the organization. And I'll have to like turn the words sideways to fit it, but it's fun. So yeah, let's try that. So with the customer members, I've got like member customers, and that's kind of annoying me. Let me just put customers so it's not so confusing. All right, where did my box go? Here's my box. Okay, what are they contributing to the organization?
The
customers.
The customers. Capital, by way of purchasing things. Customers are contributing to brand and brand awareness, hopefully by sharing, by spreading the word and the mission. And they are contributing positive energy through those things. And maybe perhaps labor of some sort. Maybe, yeah, I don't know, like the liability behind, like, hey, we need someone to deliver some food boxes, in their car. I don't know if things like that are okay or not yet, because I'm just so new to all this. But but yeah, I'd imagine we'd need perhaps some help with the logistics or certain tasks, like organizational tasks. Like if someone wants to get involved and they have experience with, I don't know, art or irrigation or something, maybe they can donate some knowledge or, yeah.
I'd kind of put that in the work trade bucket of things that people can help with. But yeah, that was good. Word of mouth advertising. I hadn't thought of that. And then purchasing products and capital. Yeah, because with the cooperative, they would be at least purchasing a membership share. So very much contributing some capital. And then the workers. What would they be contributing?
I'd say workers are contributing to so like farm workers, right? Or packers.
It could include packers, administrative work. Yeah, anybody who's getting paid and is a member. And we could have people who are like independent contractors. If you had like a payroll person, or something, they might not want to be a member. Or you might even hire a payroll company. Like there could be people who aren't members who are doing some work, but mostly I think they'd be members.
Yeah. Well, workers, I mean, we contribute knowledge, I think, which is really awesome, which allows I imagine being able to delegate a lot of things and work collaboratively on a lot of things, as opposed to trying to learn and master everything, all these different facets of the initial project. Like mushrooms, I don't see them being extremely hard. Microgreens I don't see being very hard, but it's going to take like a couple failures to fail forward and get it ironed out. But down the road, workers who have different experiences and different different skill sets and knowledge saves a lot of time trying to reinvent the wheel. yeah, and they contribute to the company or the organizational culture. They provide, the labor end of it, um, and through like maybe even through like incentive programs or something like that. Like they provide more exposure by, sharing posts or sharing coupon codes or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll put advertising as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe they could also do the word of mouth, but like you said, like incentivize by, get every new member you get to sign up, you get a bonus or something like that.
Mm.
Cool. And then producers, what are they contributing?
Producers are contributing their so yeah, we all have the time factor that everyone's contributing time. But yeah, I think producers contribute a lot more, perhaps.
Yeah, I think because they're not contributing their time although some, but they're contributing more food, right? Because they've like already created the food before they bring it to the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So they've kind of put that time into the food, and then they bring that to the organization, right? For the most part. But they could also help with advertising because, I mean, they're selling their products through you. So they would want to like advertise their own products through you, like saying, get my eggs from this co-op, right? So you wouldn't necessarily need to incentivize them because they're already incentivized.
Right.
Cool. Great. Okay, so then what are they receiving from the organization, starting with the customers? They are receiving food.
Yes. So they're getting food, they're getting knowledge. I would envision that they're getting some degree of training, exposure, education, whether it's just a pamphlet or something that they can tap into on Instagram or something that a formal class or webinar that they show up for. Perhaps even they're getting knowledge, on-site consultations or help with work parties. Maybe they want to convert their lawn into a garden, or they want to put a garden out back. And perhaps even resources from the farm, like byproducts and things that we can make that we're doing anyway, like compost tea or worm castings, worms for the garden.
Yeah, I'll put farm products.
Yeah, I just think that the value that can be offered to everyone is really tremendous. But yeah, especially the customer and the member. Like, I want them to feel. I want people to feel like, wow, I really made a good decision, and I'm part of an organization that's like enriching my life so much, and so I want to enrich them and help them, and there's like this regenerative.
So community.
Yeah.
They're getting community.
I feel like that's what we all really. Yeah, especially in the big cities, we really need that now, because I think people are, even now, especially, they're so more divided, because, of all there's the distancing and there's this adjusting to everything going on. So, yeah.
Totally awesome. And then the workers, what are they receiving from the organization?
I would say, well, the workers, I would say, have the ability to receive everything that the customers are receiving. I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, and they probably would be customers too. Yeah. So somebody could have multiple memberships.
Right.
In fact, somebody could be all three. Somebody could be growing one thing at home. They could have chickens at home. They're growing eggs, and they're coming and helping with the microgreens, and they're a consumer.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, ideally that's what I like to be. Yeah. So, what else are they
pay? They're getting paid.
Yes, right? Of course. They're getting paid. They're getting food. They're getting
More
I would say,
training, right? More education.
yeah, like a team of people who can help them implement similar things like we're doing. Um, hmm, yeah, exposure to um, growing methods and knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, mhm.
Yeah, I think I don't have a lot of room in the bubbles, so I'll just put pay and
And
education.
yeah, and the community and camaraderie, for all of those involvements, I think is what really makes it pretty awesome. And then having like cross, sort of that cross communication between those different groups. So if someone isn't yet a producer, but they're a customer, or a distributor, but they're a producer, or vice versa, there's intermingling opportunities or something.
I'll put camaraderie. It's a
Yes.
good way. It's good. Okay, cool. And then finally, the last thing we need to write on here is what are the producers receiving from the organization?
Producers are receiving, well, they're receiving help through distribution. They're getting, they're um, they're able to test the market perhaps with a new product or an existing product. They have predictability. I would guess once things are sort of in line with the CSA model, they have predictability to some extent of how much they need to grow, so they don't overgrow or undergrow, to provide for, okay, we have, 50 CSA shares. They know sort of how many of what product's going to go in the box.
Yeah, predictability. And for farmers, that is huge. Huge. I mean, that's why a lot of farmers will, kind of scoff at the idea of direct to consumer sales because they're like, I got all this food, I got to sell it. I want to have that big buyer who's just going to buy everything I can grow.
Right.
But with a CSA, you know how much you got to grow at the beginning of the season, and you know that they're going to take it. Yeah. Awesome! Yay, we filled it out. We now have
Nice.
our circles of engagement.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. So, yeah, I'll mess with it later to copy that into our document. So I'm going over the workbook now, and you don't have to look at it. I'll just ask you more questions. Let's see. So that we just categorized all the people who'd be involved financially and in decision making. I should say legally, financially, and in decision making. Those are the levels of involvement. So the next question is just defining the ownership structure. So we were talking about doing a cooperative, right? As well, specifically a multi-stakeholder. And were you able to find any information on cooperative incorporation laws yet?
Oh, no, not too much yet. It's just been a crazy week with working graveyard shifts and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's on my list for this week to finish that part.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not super, like, we don't have to figure that out right now. But yeah, like the exact laws in California are going to, and wherever else we create these. So, if I did that in Oklahoma as well, then I'd have to look up the laws here. But a cooperative, it varies a little bit state to state. And, if there is something about those laws that is going to make things difficult, you can just throw that out and say, well, let's just do an LLC and then structure it like a cooperative. Just write all the rules into the bylaws that we want and have more flexibility with it. That's one option.
Yeah. And just in sort of doing like initial research and stuff, I sort of came to the idea that right now, perhaps I really need to just save up for a retainer, probably, because, or not, maybe not a retainer, but even just having a few hours with someone who really knows this stuff, who can say, oh yeah, just go to like download this form set, these forms or whatever, here's a shortcut to this, a knowledgeable attorney or someone who's done it, because there's so much info out there. And, this with all the moving components, like I think we kind of talked about this in the last one, like this is going to require a lot of probably more hands-on, than, or more attention than the average co-op.
Yeah. So I mean, the SELC, the Sustainable Economies Law Center, as well as BALI, the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, is in California as well. So either of those organizations probably has somebody who could help. I mean, I can help as well. I haven't read the California laws yet, so I just need to look that up. Sorry, I have something in my eyeball. That's no good. But yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, it's definitely going to take refiling. I think I don't know if the existing, it looks like the nonprofit would have to have that for-profit arm, like we talked about, the LLC. So yeah, there's some initial steps. Yeah.
My cat is like trying to get my attention. Sweetheart, I'm trying to work here. Please stop. Okay, cool. So yeah, multi-stakeholder cooperative or something very similar. And how are the owners responsible for decision making? So being specific, and we already discussed this a bit, they would, vote for the board, vote for board members. I can type with the cat in my lap. No, kitten. Please stop. Vote for board members. Specifically, representatives for each class. So there'd be a customer representative, worker representative, producer representative, and maybe then a president and a vice president or something. Like that might be all you need, really. Yeah, and then I had mentioned my thought that a board like that could just then assign tasks to each board member after they were elected, like, who's going to be the, do the treasurer kind of things, could be just, assigned to whoever is the best at that, who's been elected, so then you don't have to have, 20 board members. You could have just 5.
Yeah. But yeah. So those are the board members, but then the workers and the producers and the co-op members still have voting. They have some sort of voting power. Is that how that works?
Well, I mean, there's very few decisions that have to be made at that level, at the board level. I mean, they do set a budget every year, but that doesn't have to be super strict or detailed. They would hold the annual meeting, and I mean, there's really only decisions to be made around ownership, stock. I would really recommend not having a working board, not having board members actually do any work for the organization other than the absolute necessary legal things. Doing the taxes, or making sure the taxes get done. They're just responsible for making sure those things happen. That's really all they need to do. They don't need to do all of the accounting or do the marketing. That should be completely outside of the board's bubble. I plead, don't make that the board's work, because that's not what a board of directors is for. What you want to do is have a management structure, a management system, which we're going to talk about here. It's one of the questions in this section. What's your management decision-making structure? And then you'll have, advertising manager and financial manager and your membership manager. You'll have managers for those things that are not board members, or they might be the same people, but they're going to put on a different hat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want your board doing that kind of work, because then they get used to it, and then it becomes really hard to actually hire people who know what they're doing.
Hmm.
Because the board's like, what? We can do it. You're like, you're elected officials. You don't know how to advertise. Like, we need to hire somebody.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So yeah, I mean, that's mainly it. Legal decisions,
Hmm.
which is basically like, are we going to issue more stock? Are we going to change our bylaws? Stuff like
Yeah.
that. Not a
So do
lot.
board members, okay. So board members don't spend a significant amount of time, well, at least initially, right? On,
Ever. I mean,
mhm.
hopefully your board meets for an hour every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Ideally, that
Hmm.
that's what they would do. I really recommend against them doing any more than that, because then you get into this territory where the board's trying to micromanage the organization and do all the work, and that's not what they should be doing.
Mm.
So yeah, I say have your board be a board and just do what they need to do, and have the managers do everything else.
Mhm.
Okay, so then, so yeah, the owner, yeah, so the owners, they'll vote the board for the board, and then there's just a very few decisions that the entire membership would need to make, but that hardly ever happens. So that's why I just said legal decisions, and it varies state to state. Okay, so that pretty much answers that question. Then how are you going to fund your growth?
Ooh, so initially, like in the beginning, because I've been
Initially,
thinking,
and I mean, if there's different phases, you can imagine.
yeah. I mean, I really see it as kind of like the snowball effect. If it just gets started and it's rolling, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because, we see like the price of what these crops and food in general, it's going up, and so I feel like that initial part, that initial investment or finding the investors or donors or kickstarting, crowdfunding,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, something. Uh, the content, I guess, would be based off of this plan that we're doing now, so that it more easily articulates, exactly what um, is trying to be accomplished. Um, but yeah, I'm really thinking the investors, the Kickstarter model, crowdfunding, and donations between those three,
Mm-hmm.
and good old fashioned sweat equity, hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there may even be like some sweat equity type things going on with, I don't know, an arrangement with these dirt mover companies or something. That's pretty much the most expensive part. It's going to be getting all of the dirt and the compost where it needs to be and getting it amended, for the larger veggie gardens. But if we're starting sort of on that smaller scale and then self-funding, by just reinvesting back into the co-op, then that might be a better way as well. I don't know. What do you think? Have you seen in the past? Have you seen different ways of doing this?
Well, I think the Oklahoma Food Co-op kind of got started through the initial membership shares. I mean, I wasn't heavily involved when they first started up, but they were doing $50 a share for membership. And the initial investments that they had were like buying a ton of coolers and
Mm.
uh, ice packs and like freezers to freeze the ice packs. And a lot of that stuff was donated. They didn't need to buy a lot of coolers though to transport stuff in, because it was a distribution cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were charging $50, but they still had most of that money in the bank account when I was on the board. So I'm wondering if they raised that some other way as well. I'm
Speaking of
not sure.
coolers, I saw some kits where you can buy. There are these cooler kits, and they cool. I think up to. I think they do like different sizes. I think the one I was looking at was like 200 square feet or something.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, they show you how to. I gotta remember the name because I saved it. But yeah, that looked like a pretty cost-effective way to like build a home cooler. Walk in.
Coolbot.
Coolbot, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've used Coolbots before.
Nice.
Yep, you can just turn a room into a refrigerator.
That's awesome.
Yep, that works. But yeah, I'm talking like chest coolers you'd carry around. That's what they were
Oh, those. Okay.
buying
Yeah, that
because
makes
they were
sense.
like packing stuff up and taking it out to different parts of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's your membership shares. And for something like this, I do think they were right. $50 is kind of a good amount. Like, you don't want to make it cost prohibitive for people to join. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want to make it cost prohibitive. That's for sure.
But get something from people so they feel like they've like kind of crossed a threshold. They're a member now. They own it. Like.
Yeah. I mean, some sort of contribution is really good. I mean, even if it's maybe broken into 3 or 4 payments.
Yeah, that's the other way to do it. You could say it's more, and that would give people more of a sense of investment if it was like several $100s and they just paid $50 a month for the first few months.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that better, actually, but I like the idea of not paying more than 50 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, especially if you're going to be including a lot of education in it, you could think of it that way. Like they're getting education for it. So yeah, like $50 worth of education per month for the first. I don't know. And maybe think about how long it's going to take them to get through that initial educational program. If it takes them 3 months or 6 months or a year. What do you think? How much do you think people need to learn before they can kind of know what's going on and get it before they grok it?
In terms of training?
Yeah, like let's say, I mean, to not overwhelm people, let's say you're going to want them to spend like an hour a week.
Mm-hmm.
So say it's an hour a week of work for how many months, you think? To get like a basic level of understanding of regenerative agriculture and systems.
Oh. I mean, probably like a few 4-hour days, maybe. Few sort of 4-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Maybe a little
I'm
more.
like, okay, what all would I include?
It just depends on how deep they want to go with it.
Yeah, and then, you're going to be including then, other levels as well with the workers and the producers. So you can get more and more detailed, but yeah, that would be like one of my lessons per time. So I'm thinking, hold on. Okay, I'm going to have to think about it more. But I'm just going to put a range here. From 150 to maybe at most $500. Just to be a member. But you'd spread that out over like up to a year.
Did you say 1 to 5?
$150 to $500.
Okay, the 5. So it goes up, or based on.
No, I'm saying like I don't know how much it's going to be yet. I'd want to think about it more. I'd want to think about what they'd be getting, because like, you know, I mean, think about like if we're going to create this training, if it's a really cool training, like how much would you charge for it?
Right.
You know, just say a share is kind of a way of paying for the education.
Mm-hmm.
In a way. Even though the education might actually be funded by the nonprofit. I mean, you could say that that content is free for anybody, but like the impetus to do it is kind of on the members because you have to do it to be a member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then offer scholarships, you know, for.
Well, you can't for membership shares. That's why I'm saying, just like if you want to offer the educational content for free, just put it out there. Just make it free. That's fine. But if you want to be an owner of this business, you're owning a business. I mean, this isn't. I think 50 is too low, actually. You know, like take some responsibility here. You know, like this is a business, and people, you know, maybe these you know, the customer members, maybe they can only vote for a couple of the members of the board. They don't have all the say, but they do have say, and that's going to affect people's jobs. You're giving people power over other people's jobs. You know, that shouldn't be free.
Right.
You know, normally to have that kind of power, you own millions of dollars worth of stock. You know, so I say make it serious. Like you're gonna put in a little chunk of money, you're gonna put in a little chunk of time. You know, I mean, it's not you would kind of find a balance. I'd say that's what I'm thinking. Okay, crowdfunding. Now the crowdfunding thing, I will say that you can't use Kickstarter specifically to start a business. It has to be a project. It can't be a business, but you can use some of these other platforms to raise money a little bit more loosely, but still, you're still not supposed to raise equity with it. Like there's specific ways to do crowdfunding for equity. You actually have to get approval for it. It's gotten a little bit easier recently to do that, but it's a fair bit of a process to crowdfund for a business. Now you could do crowdfunding for that education that we're talking about if you're going to also offer it for free. That's a way to get around that. You can have that entirely funded through your nonprofit because you're just going to put it out there for free. And we were talking about using existing content, you know, like it should be free, you know, if we're not putting a lot into it. But we could just repurpose it then as our business training. So you could totally crowdfund to fund like us creating that training, paying me and you to sit down and you know, like do the work, you know, and whatever else software wise and whatnot that we need to pay for to do that, and advertising. So you could also spend money to advertise this free online training and simultaneously advertise for your cooperative.
Yeah, or even to maybe get one of the garden spaces, you know, going or something like that.
Online training. Okay, yeah. Community gardens, and advertising. Okay, yeah. So I think you should do a crowdfunding campaign with your nonprofit to, create this online training. Oh, and your incorporation. Well, can you do your incorporation? That might be a question for a lawyer. I've seen people crowdfund to pay for legal fees before. But yeah, I'm a little iffy on that. I don't know if that's considered an investment to pay for a lawyer to incorporate a cooperative.
Hmm.
That feels like kind of a funny gray area.
Mm. Yeah, I would love, I mean, the best case scenario, obviously everyone's dream is to have someone on the board or have someone in leadership who has that skill set to maybe contribute, and then what do they get out of that? Because I think a lot of people, they are looking for something in return, but I think a lot of people too just want to be a part of something that's amazing,
Hmm.
and legendary, so.
Hmm. Well, I think that might be easy for like the financial piece of it, but specifically for incorporated cooperative, there probably aren't that many people out there who have that expertise. I mean, you can contact the Sustainable Economies Law Center, but I'm guessing they're probably overworked. Like they've got too many people who want their services for free. They have an accelerator program, by the way. They have their own little program like the one that you're doing, but for cooperatives. So you could look
Oh,
into that.
cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I wonder if there's a B Corporation accelerator because I liked that idea. I've
Hmm.
been a big fan of that. And the registration fee, I mean, I think for a very small organization, you were telling me as well, I think it was in the neighborhood of
The
$1,000.
minimum is $1,000 a year to be a B
Mm-hmm.
Corp.
Mm-hmm.
And there is such a thing as a benefit cooperative, but I don't know about in California. There was in Colorado. It's a whole different incorporation legal structure. So anyway, sweat equity, sweat equity. So the way to do sweat equity is through this thing called slicing pie. Have I told you about slicing pie, or do you know about it?
No, no, you haven't.
Okay, cool. So if you want to get serious about sweat equity, probably the best way to do it is to create a point system
Mm-hmm.
and just, yeah, add up everybody's contributions. So, money is worth a certain number of points, labor is worth a certain number of points, even bringing in customers or bringing in contacts or bringing in experts, connections, that could be worth a certain number of points. Um, Materials like gardening materials, tools, that stuff, that kind of thing. Yeah, lending us your, or you were talking about moving dirt, like using equipment like that. That could all count towards points, and you just add it up, add it up, add it up, and then you have some point that you've predetermined is going to be when you slice the pie. So whether that's when your organization reaches a certain size, or even just when you finish incorporating, some milestone, you're going to stop calculating points at that point and slice up the ownership of the whatever shares. So if it's a cooperative, then you're talking about the preferred shares, the investment shares that are not granting people any more decision-making power, but could potentially grant them part of the profits. I mean, if you're not planning on making a lot of profits, that's not a huge benefit to anybody, but at least they feel like their contribution is being accounted for,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting that help. You know what I mean? Just encouraging people because they're getting credit for it in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it were an LLC, then it would just be percentage ownership of the company is the default, because with an LLC, it's just like I own 30% of this LLC.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a number of shares, right? But you could also do it as a cooperative. Just you'd be like, okay, now you own 30 shares, and you own 20 shares, and you own 12 shares.
So how do you quantify, yeah, how do you, are there any models where people have tracked that? And then, because I feel like we're really getting into math and
Mm-hmm.
predictions,
Mm-hmm.
um, eventually the sweat equity points are translated into money or food or products?
Well, that's
Or
another way to do it, and I was just thinking that as you were saying it. So yeah, you could do it. I mean, normally people that think about sweat equity, you're talking about equity, you're talking about ownership
Mhm.
shares, but you could also do it as just like future payment.
Oh, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so if you had a point system like we were talking about, you could say, okay, well, we're going to owe you some points then, and we'll just pay it out to you over the next few years. You know, however
Mhm.
many points you earn, we'll just pay you this many a month until you pay back
Makes
or
sense.
something. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to
Mhm.
pay it all out at once because you're going to need to make money at some point, you know,
Yeah.
especially early
Yeah.
on. So you don't want to give too many points until you got
Mhm.
some money coming in. Or grant, or they can use to pay for products later. Okay, I was trying to figure out how to say that.
Mhm.
Or give people points they can use to pay for products later. Yeah, that'd be good. So you could do that. We just need to think about the math a bit there because, yeah, if you need a lot of labor up front, if you need a lot of help up front, you could end up in this position where like you owe a lot of people a lot and it's hard to pay them back because you got to keep yourself afloat.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you might want to look at it a little bit more like a nonprofit or even require that members help out a little bit so that everybody just pitches in a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, it's really, I think it's really going to take a village. You know, it's like birthing, you know, raising a child that sang, because it is, yeah, definitely going to take a community village. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Totally. Um yeah, so I'll just put requiring members to contribute and put a question mark after that. So you'd have to account for that as well. I mean, it could be part of the work trade thing. I mean, you could say like everybody needs to contribute at least 8 hours a month, but you can also contribute up to 16 hours a week as work trade,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, and then reinvesting profits is the other way that you mentioned. So,
Reinvesting. Yeah.
yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you could just not worry about shares. Like, you don't have to issue those preferred shares. You can just have membership shares. And you can just, let people know, hey, we're just planning on reinvesting our profits. So, I mean, this isn't about making a profit. It's just about getting a benefit because that's what cooperatives do. That's what they're for. They're not for, unlike, corporations are for making a profit for their investors, period. That is what they are for. They are not for providing services to people. They are not for making the world a better place. Corporations are for making money for their investors. Cooperatives are not. Cooperatives are for serving their members in whatever way the cooperative is supposed to serve their members. So making food for them,
Hmm.
distributing food to them, that's what the cooperative is there for. And nobody can sue the cooperative for not doing, for not making money and doing that instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you
Mm.
don't have to worry about making profits really. So if you'd rather just reinvest all the money you make, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. And keep growing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And then the other part of this question was how will you protect the purpose from profit mongering?
The purpose from.
Profit mongering. So doing what I was just saying, like people just being in it to make a profit. But you're a cooperative, so legally that's not the point.
Mm.
It's a cooperative is the answer to that question. It is protected. If you are a cooperative, then it is protected, which is why it's a little less advisable to do it as an LLC because then just legally you're the same structure as, a I mean, it's not quite a corporation where you have like absentee owners, but it's still, the legal structure is there to make a profit for the owners. Whereas with the cooperative, just legally, it's there to provide benefit to the members.
So how do you protect it from that? I think just having I don't know, like a budget or a general rule of, you know, a certain percentage going back into the mission, the cause, to expand. Because yeah, I mean, while the initial, I guess the initial engine, the driver is like the mushrooms and the microgreens, and then, you know, perhaps whatever other smaller crops that could be done that are easy. I think the bigger thing that we want to work towards is replicating this model once it's like solid, and then getting the land that's available under cultivation for, you know, regular production. Yeah. So having something that basically mandates that a certain percentage is always reinvested back into growth and projects.
Yeah, well, you would have that be 100%. I mean, especially if you don't have preferred shares. So, I mean, I should adjust that a little bit. If you do have preferred shares, then there is some impetus to like make a profit for the people who own the preferred shares. Now, if you were a benefit cooperative, you would have even more protection. But if you don't even have preferred shares, if all you have is membership shares, like, there's no difference between reinvesting all of the money back into the cooperative to provide more value for your members, or paying them out the money. Like, to them, they get that value, they get that benefit either way, because it's the same people. You know, I mean, it's like REI. They pay everybody out like a 10% refund at the end of the year. Well, what if they just lowered their prices for members by 10%? It's the same thing. So you could either lower your prices for your members, or you could pay them a profit at the end of the year. They're getting the benefit either way. Yeah. So if you don't have those preferred shares that are just for people who have invested money, then you don't even need to worry about profits or calculating profits or paying out profits. You can just reinvest all of it. Yeah, I mean, you could pay it out if you felt like it. And I mean, it's not even you, it's the board who would decide that. And I think they have to decide it at the beginning of the year, which is a little different. I think most co-ops don't do that, or most companies don't do that. Cooperatives, I think, are expected to do that a little bit more because of legal reasons. I'm not a total expert on that, but I've read things, but it doesn't mean I understand it all. I think they're supposed to decide it at the beginning of the year, just to ensure for the tax purposes that they are following the rules, because there's rules that they have to follow for tax purposes. Okay, so yeah, it's a cooperative. No preferred shares, if possible. Reinvest most profits back into the company. Yeah, so we're not worrying about paying out profits. It's not the point. Okay, next question. Where are we at on time? It's 6:04. What time did we start? I always lose track of time when we're doing this.
About 5, I believe.
We started at 5. Are we already? Oh, geez. We can't. Time just flies when we're talking. Okay. Well, I guess we should.
It really does.
I guess we shouldn't. Okay. I'm going to give it to you as homework to start thinking about the next question. So the next question is to list the initial roles that need to be filled in your organization. Okay, so, I mean, you might be filling all of those roles. What are the roles you need to fill that you could possibly delegate to somebody else at some point in the future?
Right.
Yeah. So some of those could be board kind of roles, and some would be management kind of roles. And for at least for the management kind of roles, think about the accountabilities, what that role would be responsible for doing, and also the domains that it has power to make decisions over. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll list those next time, and we'll talk about the decision-making structure.
Yeah. Sort of like board members.
Board members or managers.
Mm-hmm.
Or, both. But like I was saying, like try to keep the board just doing those kind of once a year, once a quarter, checking on the budget, making sure that we're on target to, I mean, a lot of what boards do is make sure you make a profit, but you definitely don't want to lose money. That's their responsibility, just making sure that you're being fiscally responsible, making sure the taxes are paid. It's kind of most of what they're responsible for, just like the financial and legal oversight.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have people just kind of performing tasks to do that oversight. But I think everything else should really be done by management in a management decision-making structure that's separate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that could be any kind of structure. It could be sociocracy, holacracy, hierarchy, consensus, voting, any kind of structure. So start thinking about that too, and there might be multiple different decision-making structures for the different parts of the organization, like how the workers, do the labor in the farm might be different from how the customers make decisions about how they organize themselves if they wanted to have a party or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like they might have a totally different way of let's have a once a year get together or something. They don't have to use the most stringent decision making structure for that. So okay, I'm just talking now. We should stop.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, definitely. Well, yeah, I definitely look forward to working more on this.
Yeah, totally. By the way, do you know about sociocracy and holacracy?
No, not too much.
No, you don't. Okay.
I study up on it.
Yeah, you should. I could talk about it next time because this is my area of expertise, so I can give you the lowdown on what those structures are. Yeah, I'll just talk about that at the beginning of our next session, so we can just see if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Likewise.
Thank you, everybody else, for joining us.
Thank you.
Hopefully, I didn't miss anybody. I didn't see anybody say anything. If anybody wants to say anything before we go ahead in your chat. No. Okay. But yeah, join us next time. We'll be on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Although I don't even know how to find it on YouTube. Don't ask me. All the recordings are on YouTube. And I also have a Patreon page where you can join me and talk to me. I haven't posted much in there because I'm working on my master's degree. I kind of need to finish it this month. But after that, I will be totally posting a whole lot more. I'll be making more additional content and doing more marketing and just talking to people more. I look forward to doing that after I'm done writing 8,000 words. Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you next time.
Lots of work to do.
Bye, Isaiah.